Welcome everybody to the Literary Crack Podcast, where we make your lungs die of good books. We don't want you to breathe anymore, exactly. With us, of course, it's Shane and Justin as usual. We also have our friend who will, I hope, make multiple appearances on the show, Drew. Welcome, Drew.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Our good friend.
Drew is an avid reader.
Yes. That's how I identify on my Tinder profile, avid reader.
Exactly.
That's true.
It's very, very
More
appealing.
importantly,
he doesn't read as much as we do, but he reads very deeply and very passionately. So
and
that's
quickly.
why he's around.
Also rapidly.
Yeah, very quickly.
My rapidity of reading is remarkable.
Just ridiculous.
And most importantly, you read the same things as us.
Yes.
Right.
We need to fuel our echo chamber. We're glad you're here.
Right, exactly. So we're going to jump into this. So this is the spoiler version of the Wandering in Volume 1 podcast. We're not going to do a spoiler-free other than to say if you haven't read it, go read it, please, and also stop listening.
Don't listen.
I'm actually
Drew, go ahead and
I
read
was
it.
like, so Justin and Shane approached me. It's like, Drew, what we want to do is we want to do an hour and a half just really hating on the Wandering In, describing all the reasons why we think it's a bad book and why you should avoid it and shouldn't read it. And we're going to go all into the specific reasons of all the plot and whatnot of why it's so terrible and why you shouldn't read it. And I was like, yes, this sounds like a great idea. So I
No, you were like,
strap in
no,
everybody.
I want to make my case for why it's so great. And we're going to turn this into like debate team literary crack.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a
Shane
great
and
time.
Justin crushed Drew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How it's
It's
always
okay.
been.
I'll win in the comments and the reviews. So they'll be
There you
like
go.
Shane
so
and
right.
Justin were jerks, but Drew was great. So
He's
It's
right.
so true. Absolutely.
I will also address the rewrite versus the original.
'Cause I can't, someone will have to because I know nothing.
Yeah, we have all read the original. I literally was finishing Volume 1 when the rewrite came out. So, we all read the original. It happened. There are some
read it.
changes.
Like a week later, Justin was like, "Oh yeah, she's rewriting. They're rewriting the first one," and I was just like, "What? You're kidding me? I have to read this again? Get out of here!"
Yeah, exactly. There are some changes.
You have to read them
There's
side by
not-
side. Each chapter.
There's nothing hugely changed. The thing that will... I don't even have this on the notes, but if we get to it, But we might talk about the Bloodfield section. This is the biggest change. I'm the only one that's read the new chapter. But I can talk about kind of the differences there if we get to that point. Because the original... I will say the original Bloodfield scene is terrible. What'd you say, Drew?
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. That was a real kind of dead end chapter in the original.
Yeah. It's not great. Not great. So there are some good changes there, but it just causes continuity issues. So just be aware if you've... And we're also doing it this way because if we're being honest, like the rewrite has been out for not very long. It just came out in audiobook a couple months ago as of this recording. So like most people that are going to listen to this probably have also read the original and haven't done the rewrite. So it's just easier to talk about it this way. So sorry if this offends you. But
I do
can't help
intend to read the rewrite at some point. Probably like... All right, hold on. I'm just going to retake that. I do intend to read the rewrite at some point. I don't know when. It'll be like when I'm in like volume 12 of the current narrative. But it'll happen at some point. Damn
I
it!
didn't know the audiobook.
It'll happen at some point.
I didn't know the audiobook version was out yet. I might have to grab that for Jamie when I show her the book.
That's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
I mean, either
I don't
one.
know. Would you recommend that new readers start with the rewritten volume 1? Because that's sort of where I'm leaning at this point.
I
haven't read it. My uninformed opinion.
I feel like there are people that are doing it this way and seem to be okay. It's just gonna be some weird things. Like anytime that Ryoka references the Bloodfields in like volume 2 or 3 in the original, like it's just not gonna be the same thing. Or like just little tiny
She doesn't
things.
reference it that much though. Like
Not that much, no.
Or really ever. Not the specific details. Not that I remember.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So, like-
it's not much, but you notice it. If it
Well,
does
I don't
happen.
think- She wouldn't.
Often.
Pirate wouldn't replace Volume 1 with the new Volume 1 if it didn't work, right? I feel like
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
I don't
not
think it would
huge. I
be
mean,
done
that-
senselessly.
the biggest thing is, I think, is Parsua. Parsua like appears in the blood field. World Justice now. We're already doing it. Parsua appears in the blood fields, and she has this whole thing where like she pursues Ryoka down there, and then
Why?
ends up because he I guess just like wants to kill her or something. She's just so
Ryoka was
pissed
in
off.
Least score though. Then
I
what's
don't know.
that?
I mean, well, she comes from Selim because
is why
she
I
just
need to
had
read
that
it.
fight. She just had that
Yeah.
fight with the Ivam and
Yeah.
Karuz. So she flees from there and is just like, I'm going to the Bloodfields, going to the Bloodfields.
Yeah.
And so Parsua follows her down there, and then like there's also Krishaya's sisters is down there as a part of like a merchant caravan thing. I'm sorry, that's Yvonne's sister. Yvonne's sister down there is a part of a merchant caravan, and Krishaya's like sister is trading with Yvonne, if I'm remembering this correctly, like with her sister. And
Is this your sister
so
we met otherwise? Like, did we meet?
none of you have met
Okay.
either one of those people
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
To be
you're-
fair,
yeah, I was like,
I've
I don't
not
know who
seen Yvonne's sister again. Like I saw her in that scene, and then I've never seen her again. I've
Yeah,
heard
like, I
her
don't even
name.
know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, Krishaya's sister shows up for like the Gathering of Tribes, but that's like Volume 8,
Right.
so you got a long way to
Gotcha.
go.
Or book 8.
So yeah, there's
Wow.
just like things like that.
Spoilers, man. I didn't know the
Oh, I'm
tribes
so
were gonna
sad.
gather. I thought that they all could have killed each other
Yeah,
off.
I thought
Volume
Ryoka
8.
was gonna die in book 2 because so many people hated her. Now you're telling me that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the case.
sure.
Gotta
Crazy.
start this whole thing over, man.
I know,
right.
yeah. We already
Scrap it.
messed it up. Yeah, so that's the biggest thing is like, and then Parsua like as a part of her team, they're like shooting and having this whole fight in the Bloodfields, and then Parsua like accidentally kills a merchant. I believe it's either a merchant or Null. She kills somebody, and then just kind of like runs off because like the Bloodfields are trying to kill everybody because they're the Bloodfields. So yeah,
Jamie, if you
it's
could
an
stop
interesting.
being sick in our podcast, that'd be great.
Exactly.
Shane
How
would
dare
like
you?
to stop being sick.
It's not a big deal, you know. Like it's small things, but
Sorry.
whenever she talks about Parsua, it's gonna be super weird because you're gonna be like, oh, like what? She's never references that time that Parsua killed somebody. Like that's odd. Why wouldn't that come up again? So
I think the problem is that you care too much about characters' thoughts. Whereas
do.
me personally, anything that a character doesn't say out loud, I treat as complete nonsense and don't even read it.
which is why Worm works so well.
Exactly.
As a-
To your
Right.
point, though, I just don't understand why. Like, aren't you creating a huge headache for yourself by creating potential continuity errors? Unless I guess their plan is to write them out by rewriting each volume as
yeah, I don't know.
you go.
How
but,
much
like,
is she gonna rewrite? Is she gonna rewrite all 7, 8? I don't know.
But, like, you
I
should
don't
be
think
doing
so.
that to fix original errors, not errors you created in your retelling, right? That just seems. I don't know. I don't have a word for it, but it's not a good.
Yeah, it's certainly
Yeah,
a hot topic.
I would be surprised. I would be surprised if she rewrites anything beyond Volume 2. Maybe Volume 3.
Yeah.
I think any continuity error that you make in Volume 1 can be fixed in a rewritten 2 and 3. And the ones that exist are not even that major or significant, in my opinion, anyway. So, like,
Yeah.
again, haven't read this at all, by the way. No one is less informed on this topic than me. But that's what I think is true.
We shall see. We shall see. And we'll get into this in Volume 2. I think if anyone needed to be rewritten, it's Volume 2.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
1 and 2, I think,
love Volume
could
2.
be rewritten. I
yeah. It's not
So let's
even
talk about 1.
content. It's just the writing style. I think can be fixed and things can be cleaned up. And I think Volume 2 is weaker than Volume 1. Honestly, I love Volume 1.
I agree.
Volume 2 has some issues. But we're here to talk about Volume 1. So that's our rewrite discussion. Let's get into, of course, our opening, which is the first time we meet Aaron. Aaron's, gone to the bathroom and then ended up in this world, has been burned by a dragon, pursued by goblins, arrives in an inn, and then is just like, I'm going to be an innkeeper, I guess.
I'm going to
and
bed.
starts cleaning up the inn.
Yeah.
She's tired.
So,
That's a lot of things to do in one
what were
day.
your first impressions of Aaron? First impressions.
I don't know. I don't like reviewing a chapter 1 because like the chapter 1 of everything I read is like, what the hell is this? I'm like, what?
Well, like
What
overall.
world are we in?
Overall, you don't have to do first.
I think like my initial impression of Erin was like kind of surprised. She was like really ingenuitive and learning things and doing things and experimenting with things like you have to be when you're surviving like that. And it made for a much more interesting narrative. I don't think I would change this, but I was really surprised that there was no looking back. There was no like, God, I wish I was home. This is bullshit. There was like no grieving her transplant. She was just like, well, I'm here. Gotta make some shit happen. Let's get to it.
Yeah, that's true.
I felt a weird sort of pressure between my desire for, because she just sort of like you said, she just sort of starts doing stuff and making experiments and quite quickly getting into danger and then sort of being rescued from that danger with a mixture of craftiness and luck that sort of sets the stage for all of her future interactions of that type.
True.
And I found myself warring with myself between my desire for all of the stuff that she does to feel earned and for it to take a long time and for me to sort of buy that she's been able to immerse herself in this world versus for my desire to just get the F on with the plot and to move things along so that we can, learn more about what's going on and why she's here and get her power levels up so that she can do things and make interesting things happen. It was very
You see her do
strange.
some crazy shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was weird.
and I
I was
would
just
agree.
like, I want her to have to earn every inch, and also I want her to have 1,000,000 power levels immediately. It was very incongruous. It was not. It's very
Well,
contradictory.
and I would agree in that, like, while that was more interesting than Erin just, like, laying on the floor of the inn and crying that she was, like, and being baffled that she was taken away from her home, at the same time, I wasn't sold on the story until she met other characters. I wasn't really into it until we met other people.
Yeah, I just fell in love with it. Something about the way the early chapters are written. Shane's not a huge fan of how they're written early on, and they're not the best written. But I just found it
writes the
so
sounds.
charming.
That's what is so funny. She writes
She
like
does.
"ga."
She does.
So funny.
She's very, very tired and like all this stuff. And like, but in my head, I was like, man, this just fits who I think Aaron is. Like the way the story was written, I was like, if Aaron was going to tell this story, this is how I think Aaron would tell this story. Not that it's from her perspective necessarily, but I was like, yeah, that sounds right. And it just felt so charming. Like, oh, like it's just someone writing. I don't know. I just fell in love with that, even though I could recognize there were a lot of issues with it. I was just like, oh, this is just really cute. And no author wants to hear you say that, I guess, about their work. But that was
I would hate
the
you so
initial
much.
kind of impression. I know, but I
I
was
would
like, this
ban
is
you
great.
from my
Like,
WordPress
that's just-
forever.
Right? Yeah. No, all the fans are gonna come at me. What are you talking about? It's brilliant.
There's also a
But,
tone
no,
thing. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it or not, but I guess we can sit because it's at the beginning.
Yeah, go for
it. It starts out feeling like it's very YA, like really young adult, because she's obviously very young, and a lot of the characters that come from there are also very young, and the fantasy setting sort of lends to the idea that this is going to be, maybe a lighthearted, slightly lighthearted sort of thing where things don't get necessarily too serious, even if they are, and that obviously does not hold up on the long term.
No,
Right.
not even by the
Yeah,
end
it
of the
definitely
volume.
has that.
Not even
Yeah,
by
yeah.
No.
like half.
Well, in the beginning and the end, there's such a stark contrast from each other too. They're just
It's so
so
true.
different.
Absolutely, and you
I-
can
I
really
love
tell. That's something that I really enjoy. This is kind of a nice segue into your next question. I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna presume that it is, because I really feel Pirate Abba evolve as an author more than any other volume in volume 1, because we start out with those chapters
Yeah.
that feel really lighthearted, and they've got like the onomatopoeia and stuff. And I wasn't really a fan of it because I was worried that I would have to read. I mean, at that point there were like 12 billion words, and I was like, goodness gracious, is this how all 12 billion words of this are gonna look? I don't know if I could do this. But seeing the evolution of the author and of the plot and of the characters, like all of these things are evolving and growing at the same time, and it's captured so well. And I'm sort of curious if the rewrite loses that. Probably to some degree, it does. But I love the evolution of the writing as the plot evolves too.
Yeah, and that's kind of the charm of web serials. You can kind of do that a little bit more. So a lot of people, I'll address this. I didn't put it in the notes, but Aaron is accused of being whiny. Do you agree? Is Aaron whiny?
She doesn't even process her feelings. She's
Yeah,
just
no.
like, well, I'm here. I gotta go
I mean,
get
she
some
does-
fruit, bro.
She does whine on occasion, but I wouldn't call that whiny. If you're meaning she's overly whiny, I would say she, if anything, underreacts to her situation.
I agree. I think she's underreacting.
Yeah, I felt like it was justified. I was like, she's complaining about having to go like do things she's never had to do before. That like, if any of us
Right.
were thrown into this world, we would probably have a lot of
Yeah.
problems.
This is
with
bullshit. I have to get my own water. This is ridiculous.
it. Yeah.
Do you know how long it would take me? I'd
Yeah.
be like ripping stuff out of bed frames. I'd be trying to make my own plumbing day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
some people.
I mean,
really
I mean, if anything, I find it implausible that she's not more timid and doesn't
Yes.
make certain decisions. Takes longer to make certain decisions. Like, I'm going to go drink water from this stream. I would probably take days before I was willing. I would have to be like basically dead before I would actually finally
Yeah.
do that.
Same. I mean, Aaron was in the United States for Flint, Michigan. Like we would just be a little. I don't know. I'd be a little more cautious about drinking water from strange
Jamie
places.
asked why. Because I've been transported to another world. I don't know. Is this water good for me? I don't know.
Right. I don't know
Yeah,
if there are
that's true.
microorganisms that my body isn't equipped to handle.
Yeah.
Science is a curse, people.
Right.
Right?
Knowing too much paralyzed me. That's the thing. I would not.
Yeah.
She's
I
just
would
like,
think
well,
too much.
you gotta.
if Aaron thought.
Yeah,
too little.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
my.
And
Yeah.
she
But
just
a lot of
does.
people didn't
and
like-
obviously it works out for her.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Well, a lot of people hated Ryoka in Volume 1. They didn't like how Ryoka acted either. But I thought Ryoka was a really interesting character.
Yeah, I am a sucker for characters that have like this horrible, like self-destructive trauma, whatever they're dealing with, running from their problems and like just really having a hard time. Like for whatever it is,
Justin loves the Breaking
whatever
Bad.
reason. I do. I love it. I love it. And like Ryoka, you just meet her. So we meet Ryoka when she's running around and doing deliveries. And we meet Magnolia like right away. But Ryoka just has this personality that's just so sarcastic and defensive and so walled off. And I just love cracking open those characters and finding out what's inside. And I know it's stereotypical and maybe tropey in some ways, but it's a really, for me it works. It gets me interested as opposed to characters that just seem to have it all figured out. And Aaron works really well as a contrast to Ryoka because Ryoka like overthinks everything, like really has a lot of problems,
Yeah.
and just is really defensive. And Aaron, on par with the character, doesn't think about anything. Like she just basically just does stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, I hope this works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the
It's worked
thing
for me
about
so
Ryoka-
far, so
Go ahead.
hopefully.
Oh,
Oh, the thing about Ryoka is
Go
like
ahead.
she evolves fast enough for it to not like in a TV show, characters like that ultimately devolve 9 times out of 10. They're not. This isn't a TV podcast because you would hate me if this was a TV podcast. Lots of unpopular opinions, but like characters like that in a TV show go through so much like crazy trauma, and they usually get worse, way worse, before they get any better. And Ryoka doesn't feel that way. She makes a lot of mistakes and does crazy, terrible things. Not, I wouldn't even say crazy, terrible things, actually. But she does like a lot, makes mistakes that you wouldn't want her to make as a reader because of who she is. But she doesn't, it doesn't feel self-destructive for like masochism's sake. It feels like it's going somewhere and it actually fits the character arc, and there is like, there is time for her to evolve in the future volumes.
Yeah, for sure. Drew, you're gonna say?
Oh, not much. But I guess if we're gonna talk about Ryoka, I think she's great. I definitely enjoyed her a lot. I found, she reminded me a lot of, I mean, aspects of myself, but also more so people that I used to know in high school who were just like way too smart, and also, you know, some I've continued to know as adults who I can imagine were this way in high school. Just very too smart for their own good. You know, in the sense that they know too much, but they don't have the filter yet to channel their impulses into directions that will be more beneficial to, long-term goals that they have, because they're just sort of being reactive because of the situation that they're in. And I thought the author did a fantastic job of capturing that. So I really enjoyed Ryoka
I agree.
a lot.
100%.
Because you see the good and the bad. It's not that
Yeah,
she's just
yeah.
an awful character. 'Cause
Yeah,
we're in
no,
her
you can,
head.
it was in the same sort of way where I would watch these people just butt heads uselessly with the authority figures, and then watch the predictable consequences of that, and just have to be like, now, what did you think was going to happen before you got that started? But it's a thing that they did. It felt very true to character, so I was
Right.
with it.
It's like, okay, Ryoka, what did we learn?
Right. And
Right.
and what you see, which I did not see oftentimes from the real people in real life, was the moment of recrimination and the introspection and the questioning of, is this something I actually want to continue down road down for myself? Is this where I want to go? Or am I gonna, if I don't, then what am I gonna have to do in order to make that change? And you don't get there until you have to, or else you keep going in the direction that you're going because it's easier, right? So yeah, that all felt, the setup for it and everything all felt very correct and necessary.
One of my favorite moments of her arc is where like she's been healed by the horns, and she just feels really grateful, and she's like, oh man, I've just been like acting up this whole time, like I just gotta do better. I gotta do better. And she's like really positive and happy, and then not long after, she's freaking picking a fight with Yvonne and fighting Kaoru's and just completely wrecks everything. And it's just like, and I love that because it was like, that's what happens. Like you don't, and a lot of times in books, like characters just decide to be better and then just like begin their trajectory. But like most of the time, you decide to do better because like things are going well for you and you feel like you can. But then as soon as something goes wrong, you instantly default back to all of your patterns. And that's what she does. And I was like, that's a real person. That's what real people do.
Pirate writes characters so well. I mean, this is a trend in the characters.
She does.
They're not. Yeah, they're. Anytime a character is stressful, it's within reason, and it makes so much sense, and you can see how they got there.
But you can tell too, like after that, it gets to that point. She writes the scene afterwards where she's sort of like going back through and sort of putting it together, and because everyone else has left, she sort of has no one else to sort of turn her laser on but herself, and so she takes that moment to really just be like, if I don't want to keep doing this, then I'm going to have to, you know, I'm going to work on this. And you see over the course of the volumes the impact of actually changing, making the decision I'm going to try to do this. And it won't work out the first time or the second time or the third time, but it will at least, I'll do a bit better than I did the last time. And you see that over the course of time, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And speaking of great characters, we got to talk about our buddy cop friends, Relk and Kilbakich, the best buddy cops of all time.
So good.
In the series. And
just wait till volume 3.
We initially, of course, meet them knocking on Erin's door, and she thinks Relk's a dragon and all this stuff, and Kilbakich is. Their dialogue is just fantastic. And I have to shout out the audiobook. Like,
yes.
I knew I was in love with the audiobook narrator because she nailed this scene. Like, just killed it. Like, the voices are perfect. Like, the timing is good. Like, everything is really brought to life well. But it's a great scene, and we see Relk and Kilbakich out, and they... a lot of things that happen to them are reveal the world to us, and also kind of move Erin's plot forward. Without Relk and Kilbakich, things would just kind of be stuck. So
Yep, it's true.
They do a really good job pushing it.
I was very happy to hear when I listened to volume book 11. At the end, it said read by Andrea Parsons, SAG-AFTRA. I was like, yes, you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, that's fantastic.
100%.
Congratulations.
Love it.
I love that. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because her narration is so good. I really enjoyed when like the scene with we just scooted over it, but there's a scene where she's being chased by a rock crab thing, and she makes the sound of the thing as it's chasing her, and I was not expecting her to do that, and I was like, what?
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It was very cool. And then, the voices for the different species that she does are all very defined in very specific ways. And they're very difficult, too, to hard on your voice to do some of them. She commits. Also, I love the way she commits to particularly the male characters, particularly the warlord type, really deep bravado basando male character voices that she just commits 100% to this, and it's just like I can totally I buy it, I totally sink into the idea that there's this huge 200-pound warlord dude talking about whatever, and it's just. And then she goes to Erin voice, and it's super up there and chipper, and it's just her range is really good.
It's
That's
mind-blowing.
amazing. I'm reading it in text, and I feel like I'm really missing out on that. At the same time,
Yeah,
I
feel
love
so.
text reading.
It's why I haven't continued on past where I am in the audiobooks. I would have probably picked it up by now and start reading, but I just really enjoy her style of reading so much that I kind of want to stick with it.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Well,
fair
Drew will
enough.
be leaving us for our deep dive of Volume 7, whenever that happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably.
That's okay. By the
yeah,
time
so-
we get there, it'll probably be out.
Exactly. So Relk and Kilbakich, they are, Antinium and Drake, and they're the city guards. And the big thing that really kind of pushes the Erin plot forward is that Erin's got this sort of goblin problem. And Relk is like, oh, I'm your friend. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And Relk goes and, slaughters the goblins and is like, look at what I did. Like a cat bringing
so
back
proud.
a roach to your door. And, Erin's not happy at all. And this is where, of course, we get the sign of no killing goblins and this whole kind of tension that exists for a lot of the volume between her and Relk, where, you can tell, he wants to be her friend and she really does want to be his friend, but they just have this, you really can't do this. This is not okay. And
Yeah.
Relk's like, they're monsters. Why would you be upset about this? So Aaron, just with her like Earther perspective, is able to offer this, and I just really love this whole tension, and I love the way that this really brings the goblins in and how it like ushers forward a lot of the tension we're gonna have.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also cool to see, like, it's not really revealed to us how great of a fighter Relk is until, like, the end of the volume. And you're sort of,
Yep.
you know that he's a good fighter, and that he's pretty useful. And his personality is so funny and interesting. I love watching him mess things up, just be whimsical. But really seeing him fight at the end of Volume 1 is a lot of fun. And like cements him as, holy crap, this guy's he's a legit warrior. He's a high level. This is what level 33 or whatever can do.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I have
So the
a
ahead.
million thoughts about the whole goblin thing. So I guess stop me when I get too rambly and far afield. But like, I guess I'll start with sort of like some of the obvious stuff, right? Which is that we're in a fantasy world. We're in a world that has levels, which puts us in the mind of a sort of video game type setting. In the video game type settings, you kill goblins. That's just sort of they're mobs, they're NPCs, they're put in the game so that you have some like semi low whatever level enemies to just chop up into little bits and give yourself experience by killing, and then they come up with some sort of bootstrap plot about, oh no, it's the goblins, they're attacking the village, please, be a hero and save us by murdering all of the goblins. So this is obviously sort of an extension of that idea put into into a literary form, and then you really explore the implications of that. And I knew instantly that this was gonna be, that I think this was probably the moment for me when I knew that it was gonna be something that I really wanted to explore. That if the way the author was setting it up made it seem like they were prepared for the deep mine, right, of conflict and really interesting dilemmas that this would put, the binds that this would put the characters in as this all sort of plays out, and does not disappoint. I will say, over the many volumes, it is developed extremely thoughtfully and interestingly, and there are all sorts of real world parallels. Also, I think that you can draw, which I think is sort of the entire point, is the goblins are sort of an expression of the other, the people who it's okay to
minority.
Club over the head and steal their stuff. It's the society has deemed it acceptable to treat these people worse than the way we would normally treat even, people whose society already sort of frowns upon, like homeless people or beggars or other people who sort of do things that they need to survive. You're still sort of expected to, where possible, be nice to them. But with these, this other group of people, is as soon as you see them, just like either run away or, report them or hit them with a frying pan or do whatever needs to be done to get them, out. And then to spend, and to spend the time to create the character of a goblin as a POV character, to nurture that POV and to embed it in there, to like, learn more about the culture and create all of that stuff. Is just a very, very smart, and I love it's just
I agree.
so good.
I'm really excited to talk about how goblin culture evolves in Volume 2 and 3.
Yes.
This is so interesting. And I like that Erin's like staking her claim here, though. She's really putting her morals out there, and everyone thinks she's crazy, but she's like, no, there's no killing goblins. And I mean, never mind that she was like forced to do it, but like
Well, and that's what's amazing, is that like she backs up her claim, and the first, like, within a very short amount of time of backing up her claim, she almost gets killed and like just takes grievous injuries and like would have died if Kilbegitch hadn't showed up. Barely kills this powerful chieftain that by all rights she shouldn't have been able to kill, like just by luck. And it's just like, when she sticks with it, like Pirate Ava just instantly puts her in that position
Yeah.
of like, no, like this character isn't stupid. She knows this can happen,
Yeah.
and then it happens, and she's gonna stick with it anyway.
Right. She really
Exactly.
she understands like that. She sees sort of like you have to take this moral line, or else it will be constantly eroded by all of the things that have led to it getting to this point.
Exactly.
And it says
Yep.
a lot about who Erin is as a person, that she immediately, intuitively, instantly understands something that all of the other people has eluded. All of these other people who are so embedded in this system.
Yep.
Can we just jump to the part where Kilbukich dies?
Oh, that's literally next.
All right.
Kilbridge dies. Did you guys think he was coming back?
No, I didn't.
I had a theory. They alluded to it in a couple different ways, and like the Queen's
Yeah.
working on this super secret project. Like,
Yeah,
she's not.
I will say that.
She's not
I
NASA.
was-
like she's not building a rocket ship. She's got
Yeah,
to be doing something, and they're not. No one's asking what the project is or like getting more information. So it's like clearly it's got to be a big plot reveal. And the only plot reveal that we would really care about at this stage in the game is Kilbukich coming back. But like at the same time, I wasn't sure, and if it was going to happen, like I couldn't. I dismissed that theory because I was like, okay, great, like cool, we have a queen who's working on a project, and it doesn't make sense for it to be anything other than that. But like, I still don't understand how it's possible. So like, probably not going to happen. Like he's dead, and so it was really cool how that happened, like how it was justified, and that there's a consequence. That's so video game-esque. I thought that was so interesting that the Intenium alone have this ability, and they come back, but they lose the 10 levels.
Yep.
That was so interesting. I don't know. I mean, admittedly, I was sort of surprised that he died at all. It kind of makes sense. But you know, he's positioned as this really high level warrior with a lot of skill, and so I was surprised. Like at the beginning of the fight, I didn't think there was even a chance. I was like, nah, he's fine, he's cool. But like as things devolved, and he was like, oh, he has to protect Erin, who's also close to death, and that sort of being his downfall. Like Pirate really creates these compelling situations where it's not, you don't know who's gonna win a fight every time, because characters who are typically really powerful and really skilled, literally, are placed in situations where they can't take advantage of all those skills. And that, in my mind, that's like the focal point of an interesting fight. It's not just your average fight.
yeah. I figured it out about the time when the city was in the serious dismay, and they were saying like, no, we can't because the queen is busy doing this thing. And I was like, what could possibly be more important than that? I was like, oh, it probably would be that. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. But like in the moment you're talking about when you know, the death scene happens and it's very sold, and everyone's mad and everything, that, you know, I was in that moment, I was like, oh wow, they this really important character is gone, and they're just gonna have to deal with that, and you know, sort of filling in the backstory of like how important he was later to sort of make that legend more awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that was well done.
And the reaction,
I had
everyone's
a big-
reaction in the city is so realistic, and it's not something that a lot of authors would think to include. That I thought was so interesting. But also, this was the moment where, this was the moment where I was really sold. I was like, oh shit, we're killing people in Volume 1 already. All right, this is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, I didn't think it was predictable up to this point, but also like I didn't know what the stakes were, and so seeing him die,
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not he got brought back, him getting brought back didn't actually ruin this or take this down a notch for me. It raised the stakes in a way that made the story really interesting.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I had a big clue, which is that they call it the rite of anastasis, and anastasis in Greek means resurrection. So I'm just reading that, and I'm just like, Okay, so someone's definitely coming back.
Where do they see?
Who would
where
it
did you
be?
see that?
Funny.
It's in the. It's in. That's what they, like. She calls it when the Antinium is like. Kissenver and the others are talking. It's like, oh, the queen is in the rite of anastasis, and it's just like
Oh.
the rite of resurrection. Interesting. What's that? Like, and it's like it's got to be Killikit.
Yeah, just a shout out to all the people who know Greek in the reader base.
Right? Yeah, it was such a random reference. I was like, how does Pirate Abba know this word? But okay, like that's fine.
mean,
It's really
How does
random.
Pirate
he's
Abba
replaced-
know 70% of the things they know? That's unreal.
That's
The
true.
wealth of knowledge.
He's replaced like almost immediately too, which is I think also part of how it's sold. As you know, you believe it's
yeah.
just like society just moves on. You know,
That's Antinium too. It
Well,
makes
let's-
sense.
yeah.
Exactly, and let's we'll get to his replacement. Let's talk about we of course have Pawn, who becomes a character, and we have other members of this chess club. But Pawn, it's a really great scene where like Pawn, she doesn't know not to ask Antinium for their names, so she like asks
Yeah.
Pawn for his name. He doesn't have one, and there's this like whole great scene where you're like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna go crazy
Yeah.
on her on the way back to the inn, and
Yeah.
like she's gonna get
love
stabbed
that.
again,
Yeah.
like for the third time,
Yeah.
but Pawn ends up becoming this whole character, and like and she plays chess with him, and it's just such a great like after the whole thing with Kissenver and Pawn coming back, and just this whole chess scene, and it was just so good. Like everything was so good with that.
I agree. And it's like my theory at first, before the world got really rich, was having read a good amount of Harry Potter fan fiction in my youth, I was like, is Pirate Abba just writing herself into this world as Erin? Is she just like a huge chess nerd? And she's like, how can
Yeah.
I bring chess into a medieval video game world? with
That was
levels?
definitely my thought as well.
I was like, this is so fucking
Like, all right,
random.
this is an ode to all the chess club nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as one, I was one, so you know.
But the way it evolves, I mean,
you
the way
go.
it evolves with Alism and becomes this cultural phenomenon, and I'm ready for Volume 2 to talk more about this, but the way that chess happens to already have been introduced to the world when Erin is there, and she gets into this game, she plays him in this game, and it scales from there, is so interesting, and like bringing in the Antinium and making them individual, and like that becoming research for the Hive, and Erin becoming important, and like it becoming a huge source of revenue for her, which lets her live, and the inn can flourish. Like that, what an arc! What a brilliant arc! Who would have thought? You know how I can make an inn successful? I should bring chess to a whole new race of creatures who are one collective hive mind. That would just be brilliant. And she just falls into it. Erin falls into it by accident. It's just such a great idea. It's so fun.
When
I love the idea that chess is like that they use it as a way to sort of game the system in a way because it lets them fight mock battles without having to actually lose resources. So it's like it's slower, but
And they
it's less
level.
risky. So yeah, it helps them out there. It's sort of a really interesting idea. I really like too the whole setup of how Pawn gets created, I guess, for lack of a better term, because of all of the stuff that went into that moment before with, you know, the scene with the aberrations and everything, how that like sets up Kilgit as actually a really fucking scary guy.
Yep.
But she didn't really have that before, necessarily. Like, you know, he's capable of like battle things or whatever, but like his temperament when he's not around humans, you know, you see a different side of him in that scene, and then you're really concerned for Pawn in that moment. I like that setup, and I also like the way the author continues to sort of play with that over the course of the series, but keeps putting various Antinium in danger of Kilgit having to sort of make a call he doesn't necessarily want to make.
you just reminded me of the whole scene with Kilbakich in like the inn when like the Antinium show up there for the first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And
It's
he's
so
like,
tense.
Sit, don't speak. And Aaron's like, Kilbakich, it's like, Jesus,
Yeah,
calm
she's
down.
what
Like,
is your
this is
deal?
great.
Yeah. But we sort of learn why later. And then it
Yeah,
recaps
well, even-
it later, and they come back in, and now you're like terrified for those other Antinium, and it's also sort of
Yeah.
You're not necessarily afraid of Kilgich, you're afraid of Aaron saying something that causes Kilgich to react. It's such a cool dynamic.
That's true.
Oh man, yeah, it's a great scene. I forgot all about that scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
very well
'cause,
set
like,
up.
You just don't know what to think. You're just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And you're also like, this seems a little, but yeah, it's a great moment.
Speaking of,
What else can we talk
Being
about?
afraid. I wonder if you're gonna go to the same place I am. Speaking of being afraid of Aaron saying something that she shouldn't, I thought the chapter where Aaron was talking to Kershaya about coming from another world was really intense in that way. Like Kershaya kind of bringing her in, and she has a motive. She has a reason for asking these questions, for getting this knowledge from Aaron, and Aaron is just spilling. She's just telling her everything for hours and hours. There's no holds barred. She is just dropping all this knowledge that could bring ruin to the world as we know it. And she's with no qualms whatsoever. And Kershaya is like, this is bullshit. This is crazy stuff. I'm not even. It's like
I'm out.
it sets up all
But also,
the
like,
tension.
Aaron,
Good.
she doesn't know enough. Like, she just like
Right.
spouts this stuff, and Krisha's like, how'd that work? And Aaron's like, I
don't know.
It's just the engine goes boom boom, and the wheels rotate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what the-
Yeah.
She's like, an explosion
man.
can make a vehicle, like a carriage, move? That's ridiculous.
yeah, it's-
Yeah. Makes no sense.
It's so funny.
I love too how this is that aspect of the work is a theme I think is worth talking about too, because it's there's a thing in fan fiction. I wouldn't say this is Mary Sue Enaris necessarily. I'm sure the whole is Aaron or whoever a Mary Sue thing is like a question that gets tried out or whatever, which I mean, the whole point is that she progresses and levels up and everything. But what I would accuse her more of is the self-insertion, right? The whole concept of, so-and-so enters a fantasy or game or other, some other work or medium's world and transplants there, and then the tries to sort of adapt the ideas from the real world into the fantasy world with interesting consequences. Usually it's just so that someone can boink somebody else, but it can also be for other things. And it was I really enjoyed that it's because it's sort of a trite concept. It's been done a lot, but she puts it in there. And it's just there and it works. There's a clear willingness to explore it in a very deep way. With all of, and it's sort of set up there with Aaron sort of just being maybe a little bit too free with the information, but not necessarily understanding all of it versus, Ryoka when we get there having just this constant inner monologue, this drum beat of don't say too much, don't answer questions, don't invite more questions, just, mumble along, just do this. And I was just like, okay, well, the fact that when I was reading her inner monologue, I was just like, now this girl's making sense. Now where was this with the Aaron character? Like the difference was very stark that way, and it made very clear that she was deliberate about, like, Ryoka as a contrast shows the choice made in the writing of Aaron to be this way. I thought that was also very well done.
That's so true. That's a great thought.
Yep. We're running out of time, but let's talk about. First of all, I do want to mention the idea that like chess not only being used on the Antinium as like a way of changing them, but also like instantly seeing Rags playing chess and just being like, this is gonna be a big deal.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yep.
gonna matter. I don't know how, but like this is gonna be important.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. So I want to address that real quick. But
I think that's the moment where she splits off
We-
as her own sort of character.
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. We only see her after she starts playing chess, really. So, let's talk about the horns now. Of course, the horns are dead. Karuz, Saria, they've just been slaughtered. Ivam made it out. She's Silver Spears, but she made it out, but is thoroughly traumatized by everything that has happened with Skinner. They are they are dead, but they are a pretty important part of this book, especially for Ryoka and her sort of character evolution. We talked about the fight with Yvonne. We talked about, well, we didn't talk about this, but how the horns really save Ryoka essentially by healing her leg and
Yeah.
save her from talking to Magnolia. So how any things you want to note about the horns?
Yeah, I didn't think they would die. I was so impressed and heartbroken and on the edge of my seat that whole dungeon. I still thought they were going to find a way to pull out of it. I didn't think that many people were going to go down so quickly. And the way that happened, again, like it's not like character deaths are necessary for me to enjoy a story, but it raised the stakes. It made me realize, okay, a character could die at any time, and so the stakes of these actions are high, and reading these things do matter, and I think that's important when you're reading something that's 13 million plus words long to know like there are actual risks here, there are actual stakes, and so that I thought that was such an intense part of the book. For perspective, I started reading The Wandering Inn while I was traveling. I was in Chicago, and I was so into it that I started reading it at concerts. I was in Chicago to see some concerts, and like before the band I went to see Queen, and before Queen started, I was like, well, I'll just whip out my book, nothing else to do. As I started reading, and by the way, I just so happened to read the chapter where Erin gets her first period in the New World, which is a brilliant thought, by the way. Who else would have thought of that? Who would have thought of these
Right.
these are the real things that we have to deal with when we're
Yeah.
transplanted to another world. That was
I
genius.
love that
Yeah.
chapter.
But then I was so into that battle. I was at another concert. I was reading, I guess it was 2 weeks later. That's how fast I went through volume 1. Drew was like, that's not fast. I read it in 3 days. But like Drew's like,
It was something like
yeah,
that, probably.
2 days, thank you very much.
I don't remember the number of days.
I had to read that at a concert too. Between bands, I was like, okay, I gotta get another chapter in. Just like
Yeah.
reading this crazy dungeon fight and like
Yeah.
this big boss and this enemy and how it scales so quickly out into the city. That's crazy. I'm getting a little ahead of myself with the horns themselves, but I didn't think they would die.
I kind of got, yeah, I got tricked. I thought it was going to be an all or nothing thing. I just sort of figured, they're either all dead or they're going to, once the first death happened, I was just like, well, this is it for all of them. This is just nobody gets out alive and they all, that's the story is, they went in and that was I hope you enjoyed the time you had with that adventuring party because they're all gone now, and there'll be another one in book 2, and hope they do a better job learning from the mistakes of the past. Like, I was just, I'd already cut.
Yeah, Yvonne making it out was definitely surprising.
Yeah.
Like, just like, oh, she actually got out.
Yes,
And,
I was shocked.
Yep. We're not going to talk about Magnolia. I thought about talking more, but A, running out of time, and B, there's not too much we can say other than
We'll just do it in volume
she
2.
clearly knows that there's... Yeah, exactly. There's not too much we can do on her.
I guess it was deliberate, but I was just annoyed with her in the first book. She was just like, who is this person who she was the Mary Sue. It's like, oh, you just know everything all the time and are one step ahead of everybody. Oh, okay, whatever. She doesn't get interesting until later.
But she likes ice cream.
Yeah. She likes ice cream. She has a sweet tooth. Um, Same with Ghazi. I'd love to say, I will say, my first impression of Ghazi was like, you're super cool. Like, I hope you stay around.
Yeah,
And
me
then,
too. I
like,
thought she was nice.
Yeah.
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 The volume goes on. She's like controlling freaking, trying to control the horns and like
Yeah.
that. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why'd you go from being helpful to this? Like, what happened?
Well, I think
It's
that's I think what she's trying to, I really enjoyed. I think that's on purpose, and I thought that was very well done too. This sort of, I think the author's sort of playing with what the I'm sorry, my words just went away, but what too much respect basically can do for someone, what idolization will do with the person. You just sort of see that she's a named adventurer, and you're like, oh well, then she must know all this stuff. She's probably a good person, maybe. And then you just sort of everything done after that initial impression to sort of undermine it. And then you find out more about her and stuff, and she of course becomes more complicated than that and everything. But yeah, I think that's sort of to set up the idea that like just because someone has lived a long time as a warrior doesn't necessarily, mean that they're heroic. And in fact, and I think that they sort of go here explicitly with the named adventurers in particular. The fact that they are a named adventurer should make you look at them with more suspicion rather than less.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Also, I'm
what
really
are they
curious to know
willing
what a
to do
full
to get
gazer
this
can
far?
do. Gazi's just a
Right.
half gazer. Look at a full
Yeah.
gazer
Right?
do.
That's
nuts.
I don't think I've even seen a gazer yet, and I'm like a full one. I might have like for 5 seconds, and I'm like 8 million words into this thing, so I'm still like, what is the whole?
You got
what
5
is
million to
that?
go.
What do they do? Yep, exactly. So we'll see. Won't see anything about Kissenver yet. I mean, Kissenver's, everyone hates Kissenver in Volume 1, so I won't say too much
He
about
made the
that.
wrong
He's a-
choice due to inexperience and yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I just wanted to note that Teriarch is present in Volume 1,
Yes.
just because I love
Yes.
our introduction to a dragon,
It's so
and
good.
the way that like he's introduced is just crazy, like not crazy, but just a little, just old and kind of lost,
Yeah.
and really just
Yeah.
sort of like I don't really know what to do. I'm just gonna send. I don't know. I'll just send this human to the blood fields, and hopefully she'll survive. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's just kind of a weird. I just love the introduction to him.
Yeah.
And we do get a brief glimpse. I will mention this is the first time that we see this like summoning ritual. We don't know who does the summoning ritual. We don't know what to make of the
Yeah.
summoning ritual, but we see this ritual where like you got 20 people appearing, and you also get this initial chapter with the King of Destruction where he just basically in a cartoon style way. I don't mean this in an offensive way. It just is how it
Huge
is. In a cartoon
monologue.
style way, he's like, I am the king.
Yeah.
I will destroy all. Like, whoa. Like, it's this roars to the
He's
cow.
just like, well, that seems ominous.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay. We'll see what happens. Blaine hated that chapter. And my wife, she read that and was like,
Really? I thought it was great.
Do I have to see
thought it
him
was fun.
again?
I was
I didn't
thrown. I
mind
was
it.
like, okay, so I guess this is the villain later. All right. Well, I don't know why we needed to necessarily telegraph that so explicitly, but okay.
Yeah, I just thought we were just seeing more people come into the world. I was like, okay, we're just gonna watch
Yeah.
more people show up and see what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that covers what we can cover. It obviously doesn't cover enough. We could talk about this volume forever. It's 300,000 words. So the fact that we got it down to an hour, I think is pretty good.
I just there's one
That's
one
true.
other thing I wanted to say about the goblins is just that I think it was the goblins, or maybe it was the goblins or something, but I'm pretty sure it was the goblins at the point where I figured out like the way it was something to do with the goblins and the way Kilgitch and Relk are talking and the way they're filling out the world and sort of explaining how like things came to be the way they are and the historical parallels and the reasons why like lines are drawn in certain ways and stuff. And I was just like, in my mind, I just went, okay, so what I'm getting from this overall is that there were tensions. The tensions are not resolved, and they're all living with each other under one roof. That tells me the tensions will one day explode, and there will be a huge conflict, and it will be very bloody, and that everything happening right now is basically just pre-positioning, and everyone even understands intrinsically that what they are doing is pre-positioning themselves for some later conflict down the line, which therefore makes it inevitable. Which is, of course, without spoiling it too deeply, exactly what happened. And I thought that was, it was a very, I felt, it was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I understand that you're laying seeds for a foundation that will later, I don't know where this is going, but it will definitely go somewhere. And I thought that was very well done.
I'll just say I wasn't. By the end of this volume, I was pretty convinced that like 90% of goblins were evil, and I was like, okay, we got like Rags,
Yeah.
and like maybe Rags can like be the good one, and maybe she can like change things, and I think that's what we're doing. But like in terms of like the average goblin, yeah, I should probably just like chop their head off. Like I don't know, it seems
I
pretty
agree.
bad.
I have the same.
And yeah, the story evolves from there, but that was definitely into volume 1. That's where I was at.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, I think, before we wrap up, Torin, a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
'Cause-
we didn't even talk about Pisces. That's the big neglect that,
Yeah,
that we
That's
did.
true.
but
We did talk about Pisces. That you're right.
We'll talk about him lots more.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I am confused. Yeah, I think he should have been more capable. I don't think Aaron should have discovered him so easily. He was definitely more capable than he appeared, which is kind of weird.
But I love that. I love how annoying he is, and how just like, no,
I mean, I
I'm
agree.
so good. I'm blah blah blah.
I love Torin.
I agree. I'm glad you discovered him, but like, after what you see of him later on, it's like, geez, man, like, really? That's all you could do? What is going on? Like he displays more ability than he uses, and that's sort of strange to me because he's a smart character. He's a smart guy. I don't know why he would do that. I mean, he's like scaring people in villages to take their food when he can go invisible. Like, just take the food and leave. So I'm kind of confused by how we're introduced to him. I think there's a lot more to say about him later on, but
I think Torin
he-
is sort of introduced as like a child who is maturing. So you know,
Oh yeah,
like,
Torin
at
makes
first,
sense.
You know.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was talking about Pisces.
Well,
Oh, Pisces. Sorry.
I think the reason Pisces introduced
Yeah,
this
I
way
get what
just so
you're saying.
people know it's somebody stealing and they don't think it's like something else. That's the impression I got. He was like, well, I don't want to like make people think that like need to call adventures or something, and they won't just call adventures for me because like they'll just think I'm some annoying wizard dude like mage. So maybe I can just do that. That was kind of the impression I have. But I
That's
also
fair.
got the impression
That
that,
makes
like
sense.
Pisces isn't thinking clearly
Mm-hmm.
at this point. Like he's starving, he's barely surviving, he's just like not really doing so well, and I think he's just willing to do anything just to try to go forward and be able to study his magic, and he just doesn't know what else to
You're
do.
meeting him at a low point, and
Right.
Aaron, as Aaron often does, is sort of responsible for helping him get out of his difficult patch, and Pisces, being who he is, would never thank her for this, but there's sort of a mutual understanding between the two of them that that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you're right. And then Torin, the main thing I want to talk about with Torin is I knew at the end of volume 1, my prediction is that Torin is going to lose his shit and he's going to go crazy because he got that gemstone. He got the Jewel of Terror or whatever it's called. From Skinner. And so really excited to see where that goes in future volumes because we've been set up for an interesting character arc with Torin. I'm really curious as he levels and gains sentience, and now with this stone, what's gonna happen?
Yes. Speaking of characters that get taken for granted, Ursa, who feature on this podcast, is my dog, and she says hello. So all of you
Hello.
can love Ursa.
How's it going? Welcome.
Shaking herself out.
Glad you're here.
But yeah, that's about it. Like I said, we could talk forever about this volume 2, and as these things goes on, we can talk forever. We're gonna have to start splitting some of these things up eventually. But this is a great conversation. Please stay tuned. We're not gonna do these consecutively, but we will be putting out more wandering and deep dives as time goes on. So just please stay tuned and follow along with those, and follow us on social media as well, which we'll tell you about. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time for Volume 2.
Can't wait.
Or whatever we do before Volume 2. And Drew, thank you for being here. This
Thanks
was
for
great.
having me.
Thank
This is
you,
We're
super
bringing you
fun.
on all of them in the future until Volume 7.
Do I get a choice in this?
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
absolutely not.
That's fine.
We'll see you and Drew next time. I don't know why I just turned my microphone off. I'm going to stop.